Speaker, that was certainly an impassioned debate, an impassioned plea from Mr Chris Hipkins. Mr Speaker, it would seem that the debate has broken into one of just the electricity industry and the price of electricity and electricity conservation. But I'd like to start by saying that the ACT Party won't be supporting this bill. And, well, we approach things with an open mind, Mr Hipkins. Approach things with an open mind. But no, we're following the logic that Mr Gilmore outlined, and he made the point. He made the point that if you go back to the 80s and 90s, you go back to the debate between VHS and Beta, you go back to the debate between Microsoft and Netscape, one could have taken a gamble, one could have decided which type of technology to pursue, but one would have made a mistake doing that. And I think what Mr Gilmore has outlined very, very clearly is that would be foolish at this stage. But I thought it was particularly interesting that Mr Sam Lotoega talked about the 75% increase in the price of electricity during the term of the Labor government. And of course he says, well, the Labor Party are now crying crocodile tears about the National Party's lack of support for this bill. And I think it's very important to remind ourselves that, yes, there was a 75% increase in the price of electricity over the last 9 years, 3 times the rate of inflation. And so what is the government doing about it? Well, they're going to increase electricity even further. They're going to increase it even further because we have an emissions trading scheme starting on the 1st of July this year, being extended to the stationary energy sector, which Treasury say will add 5% to the price of electricity. And I know that Mr Hipkins is concerned about that because he's concerned about electricity rising, but he ignores the fact that his own party would have actually increased electricity by 10% if it had won the last election. But of course the ACT Party, and only the ACT Party, actually questions the logic of actually having artificial increases in the price of electricity at all. Why would you actually proceed with an emissions trading scheme when none of our major trading partners are prepared to impose those same costs on their own consumers and their own businesses and their own exporters, Mr Speaker? And I know that this is an issue that concerns all New Zealanders and particularly people living in rural areas, Mr Speaker, because I've just finished a 2-day tour of the Waikato and Taranaki, had 7 public meetings, and is absolutely stunned by the response and the number of people who wanted to come. So Mr Clendon talked about the current rollout of what he would call dumb meters, and I understand Mr Clendon's concerns because when the Parliamentary Commissioner actually raised this issue with the Commerce Committee last year, I also wondered at the wisdom of doing that. But I was persuaded by the arguments of Mr Gilmore and the National Party that to proceed when there is so much uncertainty as to the way the technology will go would be unwise. And of course Mr Clendon said that the advantage for the meters that are currently being installed is all one way. The advantages to the generators. They will be able to use these to automatically read meters to calculate accurate power bills, and I think that's an advantage to the consumer. But he, of course, argued that the consumer will get no additional benefit.
It's time for me. The time has come for me to leave the chair. I shall resume the chair at 7:30.